My name is Randy. Thank you for watching and welcome to the channel. So basically today in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about this car behind me. It's my 93 Toyota Supra. The story on how I got this car is actually pretty crazy. Most people, when I tell it to them, they don't believe it, but here it goes. So I had a good friend, his name's JJ. He's a big import guy, and I've always been into a lot of the American muscle, domestic cars. Had a couple Mustangs, had some Corvettes, still currently have one as we speak, a Grand Sport actually. He would always tell me, he'd rant and rave over import cars, but he used to be a car importer, and so he's had them all. He's had the Supras, he's had, you name it. Basically one day we were hanging out and he told me, or I actually told him, I said, dude, at the time I had a C6 Z06 Corvette. I was like, man, I really want a Supra. And this came because he took me to a shop actually here in DFW. It's in Irving. It's called GS Motorsports, and introduced me to the owner. His name's German. And I walked in and I saw Supras and Skylines and 240s and you name it. This is import heaven. And I saw a Supra in there. I was like, damn, okay, this is what I need. After that experience, we left and I told him, I was like, I'm gonna make it happen somehow. I didn't have, and with the values of these cars going up and up, it wasn't something that I was ready to spend the money, nor did I even have the cash to drop on something like this. It's not too practical. So one night, I stay up late and I decided to hop on Craigslist like most car guys do. I decided to message this guy. It was probably 2 in the morning. He had this car listed. The photos were incredible. It was from photo shoots. He had a relatively decent sized build list on it, and it was the real deal. This car was, a USDM left-hand drive, kind of what you wanted. V160 swap, 2JZ, GTE, single turbo, the whole nine. Hit him up. Like I said, at the time I had the C6Z, and I proposed a trade offer. I was expecting fully to get shot down and actually laughed at and partially insult the guy, which wasn't the goal, but I mean, just, it's worth a shot. Wake up the next morning and he says, damn, beautiful, I'm interested, let's talk. So we spent the next week talking about what's done to the Corvette that I had, what's done to the Supra, so on and so forth. Now this guy who owned this car, his name is Chris Padfield. And he actually became a really good friend of mine, great guy. He had acquired the car and he built it, spent a lot of time and money as well doing so, and he did it in honor of his father who had passed away. So the car held a lot of sentimental value to him. It still does to this day. He's in Mississippi. Down in Mississippi, it's not really a favorable place to own one of these cars because there's not that many shops that work on them, that tune them. This is an E85 car, so getting fuel for it is not easy. On the other hand, I have a Corvette that runs on pump gas. Just any gas station, get in a cruise, nothing to worry about. And there's basically somebody who can work on a Corvette anywhere in this country, in any city. We talked, and then we agreed to go ahead and proceed forward with it. So then myself and my friend JJ, he owns a tow truck company as well, and he had a flatbed tow truck that was perfect to put the Corvette in this car on. So we strapped the Corvette, left, and drove straight to Mississippi. Took us about probably 12 hours. So we arrived in Mississippi. I see the Supra pull up, and I'm just like, holy shit. Get out, shake the dude's hand, meet Chris, meet his buddies. Yeah, the rest was history. We both did a short little test drive. The Supra at the time didn't run well at all, and that was due to fueling issues and whatnot. And he had just essentially put so much money and time into it, and for it to not be running well was kind of discouraging. Here in Dallas, there's a lot of guys who can do the fine tuning on these cars, in which have done on this car. So we shook hands, we swapped titles, made friends, and I headed straight back to Dallas. Once we get back to Dallas, JJ and I, we pull up, it's probably 2 in the morning, and we decided to stop in the parking lot to unload the car, and I was just gonna drive the car from the parking lot back to the house. And of course, it started in the parking lot in Mississippi, now it won't start at all. That was discouraging, but still not a big deal. So we left the car in the back of his tow truck. About 2 days later, he brings the car to our shop that we had at the time, and we start to look at it. I originally, with the car running in the condition that I was in, I had plans to, and I do know a good bit about cars. We do work on them myself, and I have a couple buddies that do. We all are very involved with it, but this is something that I was very new to, the Supras and the import cars in general. And I figured this is one of those cases where I'm gonna find somebody and leave it up to the pros. Then I began the search of figuring out who I was gonna, go through for that process. I started asking around to all the other car guys I know, and I said, hey, I got the Supra. I need to get it tuned. I want to get some stuff done to, get some of the issues worked out, the minor kinks. I have no idea. I mean, I know what's done to the car from what Chris had told me, but before it gets strapped down and tries to make some 1,000 horsepower pull, we need to make sure everything's safe and whatnot. So I was referred to Dinosaur Performance, decided, okay, let's give it a shot. Checked it out. They had extremely high horsepower Civics and Supras, and so I was like, okay, let's do it. The car essentially went straight from JJ's tow truck over to Dinosaur Performance. There, met the guys, met the whole crew, guys and girls actually. Rachel, she's great. Dropped the car off and it's like, go do what you need to do, check it out. So Clint spends some time with the car, figures out that we're having a fuel issue, which is a given, knew that, but he's incredible with the wiring and would really just anything mechanical in general. So he goes ahead and he does a lot of the wiring to the pumps, pulls the pumps out, sees that there's a lot of corrosion from the 85 and the pumps that are in there. So he makes some recommendations to me and just I'm like, dude, you're the king, you know, go ahead. Wound up putting a powerhouse billet fuel hat in there, sent the injectors off to, I forget where we sent them off to, but we sent the injectors off to be cleaned, did that, changed the actual hats on the injectors, changed a couple of the fuel lines. So now the car was ready to roll and strapped to the dyno and see what it could do. Fast forward, we have what was gonna be one day of dyno session, essentially turned into a couple different sessions, but all said and done, you know, after working on all the minor things, the car wound up laying down 816 to the wheel. Got this car, you know, it definitely is built, it's definitely stout, just like Chris promised. I mean, everything ran exceptionally well on the dyno. Once we had done the fuel system, we had made a decision because it was peaking, it was around 816, and at the time the boost was capped out. It does have a huge turbo, but the intercooler is a 3-inch, it's relatively small. So Clint was like, you know, we could change intake, bigger piping, cold side piping, and you pick up some more power. We could turn the boost up even further, or you could leave it at this, you know, get used to it, enjoy it, and then we could go up from there. I mean, anything more than 500 or 600 for the street truly is impractical, and I know that's people are gonna disagree with that, but it is what it is. It's like, this is great, let's leave it. So we decided to stop there, got the car back home, started driving it, enjoying it. Yeah, so here we are today. Enough of me talking, now I'm gonna actually kind of do a walk around of the car. Here it is. As I stated before, it does have a 2JZ GTE. Now, as far as internals, the motor is built. The only limitation on this car right now is that it does not have billet mains. So basically, starting from the bottom up, it has Manley rods, it has JE pistons. Obviously the rings were gapped for high boost. It is studded, so it has ARP head studs. The head was done by Titan out in Florida, which if you're watching this video and you know about these cars, you probably know all about Titan. It does have GSC stage 2 cams in it. It has some HKS adjustable cam gears, which you can't see right now. They're pretty cool, but I'd say the biggest limitation with them is that the teeth are starting to wear down. That was one thing that Clint pointed out. He's like, we gotta change this because obviously everyone knows what happens if that happens. So as far as intake, it is running the factory intake. Here's the 3-inch cold side piping into the intercooler. Now let's talk about the turbo. As far as the manifold, it does have an authentic Greddy manifold. This is a Borg Warner S475 turbo that was actually sent out to Boost Lab. It is running a tiled dual spring wastegate. So for the fuel system, it does have braided lines all the way through. Huge pain in the ass because the 85 likes to rot these out. And there's been a couple times now where I've been driving and noticed a fuel line would puncture. So that's definitely something I'm gonna have to address in the future. These injectors are actually Fuel Injector Clinic 1750s. It is running 2 Most Plus, which is kind of a knockoff Bosch 044 pump. It has 2 of those to feed. As far as the exhaust, it does have a 4-inch downpipe, and it's essentially a 4-inch exhaust all the way back. For the transmission, it is running a V160. As far as differential goes, it is running a differential out of a Lexus GS. I went with that because that is closest to the original twin turbo gear ratio that you can get, at least without going for the TRD big diff. There's a guy who had one for sale. He wanted an astronomical price for it. obviously, as with anything on these cars. So I opted for that for the time being. With all that being said, I do have a lot of plans to make this car more of my own, that it is gonna eventually get painted black. I'm gonna redo the interior completely. I'm gonna probably change up the turbo setup on it. Too laggy right now. Do billet mains, refresh the head. So that's gonna be a wrap for this video. Thank you again for everyone who's new and watching this. Hopefully you've enjoyed hearing the story on how I acquired this car. If you like what you saw in this video, be sure to subscribe. I do plan to upload a lot more in regards to the Supra and the Corvette, as well as some of my music career. Thank you for watching. Stay posted for more content.
Perfect.